there is ample evidence that within a pyramid, a body that has died, like a dog, cat, whatever, they don't rot, they dry. Now the question is this: why did the Egyptians, if this has been the case, why did the Egyptians start the mummification? Why didn't they just put the body in a place where it could dry out and be remaining the way that it had been? So I personally think that drying out within a pyramid is probably a better solution than mummification. So practical question. Enigmatic probably.
Anybody wants to comment on that?
I'm sorry, I don't have a view on this subject, and I'm not sure how great the pyramids are at preserving bodies, as a matter of fact. But I have seen some of the work. Does anybody actually have a view on this subject?
Can somebody repeat the question specifically?
You were saying that bodies dried out inside the pyramids. First of all, none of us here, I think, believe that people go inside pyramids as dead people. Is anybody that does? I think if a dog dies, I think it's the dryness of the desert air. I think is I've heard stories like that as well, and experiments also done with small pyramids and all kinds of pyramids, and there's no real scientific background to that. I don't know if any of you have come across any scientific background proving it. No.
So we can't answer that in any definitive way.
You got a stump.
Yeah. Silence from the panel. Next question. Here we go. Just hold on. Speak into it.
If you look into Catholicism and if you look into Catholicism and why saints are canonized and that sort of thing, and they talk about how bodies don't decompose. One's got to say, well, hold on, how much wine have they had? Are they pickled? Or, is it their food? I mean, who knows what they're eating? But obviously there's some sort of environment, something that they're doing, internally. They do remove the organs anyway. Yeah. But usually it's a matter of the blood decomposing. With saints, they don't decompose. I mean, there's certain,
Right. Who's got a question? Scott.
Just two very quick questions. Klaus, can you just tell us how big that amazing disc was? How big is it physically? The disc that you thought might have been the progression from with the tadpoles and the sperm and the egg and everything.
The black disc.
Yes. How big is it physically?
How big?
Yeah, roughly.
22 centimeters.
22 centimeters. Okay, thank you. And the next question was to Wayne. I'm sorry, maybe I missed it. What is the question mark?
The question mark, you were saying that some people were thinking the question mark was a symbol itself.
No. You were pointing to this blank area. And
all right.
What was supposed to be there?
On the Solomon Key, when the orientation of Orion is at a specific angle, at that specific angle on the horizon, when it is at that angle, I'm measuring what should be on the horizon. The ancients thought stars being born on the horizon was the place to measure them. And on the Solomon Key, it seemed that both these constellations seemed to be in the right orientation above the horizon at that distance. So it's a distance above the horizon. There should be something measurable. And that star fits in that spot when the orientations are correct.
Okay, so it was pointing to a star.
Yeah, that's hiding behind the horizon there, or on the horizon that we should be looking for. It's too small to be seen anyway, so even if it was there, you'd need a telescope, but it's pointing in that area to look.
So you have proven that there is something behind it?
Yeah, we've measured that point in space.
So you've actually found the star that's...
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
Something like a star, yeah.
Just pass the mic on to the next.
A question about archaeoastronomy. Most people out there who know only the first thing about the subject archaeoastronomy think that what we do is we get hold of sky globe or one of these astronomical animation programs, and then we tick it back to any number we choose, BC, and we read off the sky and the horizon configuration on the screen, and then we match that to something on the ground, and voila, we have a date. However, and from that has now become almost gospel that the Sphinx equals the age of Leo equals BC 10,500. But should we not consider that the precession cycle is itself an assumption? which basically Plato and everyone has written about it, has made that assumption. It's a very neat assumption, but it shouldn't be. The precession rate is an assumption on which the software is based. The obliquity of Earth is an assumption. The Newcomb curve of the obliquity is an assumption that's assumed to hang around 23.5 degrees as it is now and forms a sine curve. Whereas, in fact, there may have been a bump, and that bump would have seriously affected obliquity. And the software also assumes that the Earth orbital radius is around current value, and there is work from Russia and elsewhere that indicates that that's not the case. Given all these uncertainties, should we be applying dates as far as 10,500 BC and read off dates of monuments from there?
Fair question. I think you have to work with what you've got. Precession, to my mind, is not an assumption. It's a fact. It's been observed and documented for long enough for it to be a fact. What causes precession is an assumption. The notion that precession is caused by the pull of the sun and the moon, that is not proven. Over in the US, the Binary Research Institute, headed by Walter Cruttenden, is proposing a totally different mechanism for precession, suggesting that our sun is part of a binary system, as a great many of the stars in the sky are, that we don't know our binary companion yet, but that we're in orbit around it on a vast circular journey through the heavens, which takes 26,000 years to complete, and would produce the same observable as the wobble on the Earth's axis that is proposed for the cause of precession. So I would say the observed effects are beyond an assumption, but the cause remains to be decided. As to the obliquity, the best scientific evidence is that that does change, that there is a change in obliquity of several degrees over a period of time, and that there's a cycle to that too. But I agree with you, we don't know enough. These are research tools. We're trying to use them as best as we can, match up with ancient knowledge, ancient observations, and see where it takes us. I personally was very glad when the computer programs were introduced. SkyGlobe was a very basic one. Now, for example, SkyMap Pro is a lot better, takes account of proper motion of the stars and so on, which is another important factor. But I don't think anybody's claiming that this is absolutely perfect. I just think it's taken us a lot further forward than we were before.
I'm Dolph. Hello, I'm Dolph Bierman, and I do some amateur studies about these things. As a kid, around about 1968, 70, I read all the books of Eric von Däniken, Clark, and all those people. They have reported on findings of these discs of the other ugly people in the Central East.
They've reported on what, sorry?
On the finding of these discs with prints on, almost like the gramophone discs, but with very, very fine quality print on it that they couldn't read, but there were stacks of them. That came from a UFO landing, crash, and all those people became extinct. That's one of the interesting things. The other one is platinum statues that I talked about. But then there's another factor that I have got great difficulty with always is alignments, that we talk about the alignments. Because what is currently happening at this very point in time, there's a rift of over 7 meters wide in Ethiopia. That's exactly the same as the Mid-Atlantic Rift. Do you know about it? Now that rift is, in fact, continental movement. Indian-Pakistan plateau is currently pushing in under the Himalayas. It's a very slow process. But what happens is that the continent's positions change. Now we make very fine assumptions about those continent positions. I say that it's not necessarily possible, but if I look at the Perry Rice maps, they show still perfect alignment. So continental drift must either be a myth, or that they have moved to the same positions as they would have been before the movements.
Yeah.
So I've got a difficulty with that.
Yeah, so if I understand you correctly, you're suggesting that continental drift, were it happening at a fast pace, would overthrow and make useless all of the alignments that we talk about. I think that those of us who work with alignments work with the assumption that continental drift, A, does occur, and B, occurs at such a slow rate that it wouldn't affect measurements within the last, say, 10,000 years. I would say that that is the assumption that we're working with. But actually, you know, our knowledge of the mechanisms of the Earth is not as deep as we would wish it to be, and you may have a point. As to the issue of the discs and the UFO, I feel that's a question, if it is a question,
it's a statement.
For Klaus, okay.
I don't expect that it's all been known, but there are very interesting things about books that have been written quite some time ago. But the continental drift is a problem to me because drift currently happens in between continents over a centimeter per annum in some places. So it is a problem. So the other thing that sorry to take so much time, but it's
yeah, what I'd like to say to you, sorry to interrupt, if we can keep the questions to very short, straightforward questions rather than long-winded statements, because there are quite a few more people.
The next is a question.
Okay, thank you.
What is the effect of the reversals that happened according to, what's this book? Worlds in Collision, which there's great research in the last 6,000 years, events written up in history, where the east-west reversals happened twice. And that is a very serious consideration. So either that book is wrong, or we've got the wrong perception about it.
You're talking about Velikovsky's Worlds in Collision. Anyone wants to comment on that?
I'm from Australia. My name is Roger Matthews, and I've been interested in crop circles for some time. I noticed nobody ever mentioned that. We have 3 of you from the UK where these occur, and I was wondering, I've never seen one. Have any of you ever seen one, firstly?
Yes, I've seen hundreds, and you do get them in Australia as well.
Yes, but I haven't seen one.
They're quite a long time ago they started occurring there. I think in the early 80s there were some in Australia, yes. And it's well worth looking out in Australia because they still occur there.
Now, mostly people would believe that some sort of a craft comes down from above and causes them to happen. But after listening to what Michael said earlier about these resonances and frequencies and the circles that I'm going to go and see on Tuesday, that maybe they could come from under the ground to do what they do. Is that a possibility? That's my question.
Well, yeah, something I mentioned in my talk actually about earth grids and about cymatics and how a kind of there's an energy system and all these different sounds and vibrations going on within the earth, but also between in the ionosphere and to the earth. All these, they're called spherics, tweets, and whistlers, and they bounce around between around in our atmosphere. So there's a lot of noise going on, and some people are suggesting there is a symphony there. But the fact that these crop circles appear always near ancient sites, a majority of them do, is very, very bizarre. And there seems to be some connection with the ancient sites. There are hundreds of theories about what this is, suggestions of earth energies, even elemental beings, and many other, and UFOs, as you said. So the mystery is still out on that one. The more you look into it, the deeper the mystery becomes. I'm not sure if Andrew wants to add anything to that from... He should. I think he should.
Thank you, Hugh.
I think it's just important to point out that there may well be a natural phenomena relating to crop circles that's been around for many hundreds of years. There's woodcuts that show devil's circles from the 17th century, one in particular. I certainly know of people that saw crop circles before the modern era of flying saucers, when they were known as saucer lists. However, I think it is important for you to know that the vast majority of what you see as formations are actually made by humans. I live in the very area where they're made, and I can tell you all about it. off air. But I think probably for the moment, I think you just need to be aware that when you look at the images of the crop circles, think very carefully. But even if they are made by humans, the key word for the future is co-creation, that some of the people that are making them are inspired to do so through dreams, visions, and virtual altered states of consciousness. And as they actually go out into the fields and make them, visions are coming to them. They change the designs as they're going along, and in doing so, they become classics. And this is something which we need to try and take on board for the future. So that's that.
Just finally, I'd like to add to the crop circle phenomenon and hopefully put it to bed for now. I've just come back from a seminar in Atlanta where David Wilcock presented a phenomenal presentation on crop circles and its origins going back thousands of years, actually, and the deep mysteries about them and the deep encoding messages and information that are portrayed in these crop circles and the information that I believe we are being given by some more intelligent beings, important information for those of us that have tapped into a higher consciousness or are opening ourselves up to receiving higher consciousness and higher knowledge. And I would recommend you check up David Wilcock. I think some of his work is available on the internet. If not, just order one of his DVDs, and he's really got phenomenal information on the subject of crop circles. Next question.
Can I just add something? Sorry. Which is that David Wilcock has a major book coming out in the next few months. So look out for it. It'll be well worth reading.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You're giving me lots of exercise. Hi, I'm Janine. I have hundreds and hundreds of questions.
Please stick to one.
I'm sticking to two, and they're fairly brief, I hope. The first question I'm addressing specifically to you, Graham, and I think it's quite a simple one, but it was just an idea that I had. The people who experience endogenous, is that the correct pronunciation?
Endogenous DMT, yeah.
DMT.
Yeah.
Is it possible that they have a natural tendency to maybe be shaman?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Without realizing it, because obviously a lot of them have conflicting religious beliefs.
Indeed, yes. I would say that that in this sense, shamanism is indeed hardwired into the human condition. That it's something that we're meant to do, and that there's a certain small minority of the population, I think it's about 2% actually, who have these experiences spontaneously without doing a trance dance or smoking DMT or drinking ayahuasca. And I'm sure that that's where the first shamanistic experiences came from such people. And
would that equate to the Native American, I think it's the Native American concept that they don't even have a word for artist. Everyone is an artist. Is it the same sort of concept?
I would say it is, yeah, definitely.
And then the second one is, and I'm just throwing this out there, it's not something that's been touched on, but the idea of time not being a straight arrow in one direction was thrown out. And it made me think of an email that I received on the Charlie Chaplin movie, in which one can see a person on a cell phone.
I've seen that one, yeah.
I don't know whether that's been doctored, whether it's genuine.
No, it hasn't been doctored. It's genuine. What the mainstream tries to say is that that's somebody talking into an ear trumpet or using an ear trumpet. Why they're speaking, I don't know. Although I wonder how the cell phone reception would be in 1907.
But then if time is fluid, perhaps they were getting...
Perhaps the microwaves come through the time field
Perhaps the microwaves aren't dictated to by the rules of our dimension.
Yeah, it's possible. The more I learn about the subject of time, the more mysterious and completely weird and way out it becomes, and the more clear it is to me that this notion of a straight line progression is complete nonsense, and we're dealing with something much more complicated, and that we may be intersecting with earlier times in all sorts of ways, which may be influencing what's happening to us today. We may be reliving in a different mode experiences from a previous time.
Well, thank you, Graham. I was very skeptical about that. I tend to be very skeptical about what comes to me without my request over the internet.
Can I just add something to that? There's something called backwards causality, which is something a guy called Anthony Thorley introduced to me recently. And it's part of the quantum physics realm. But he's convinced through his research into crop circles and landscape zodiacs and other phenomena such as even megalithic sites, that the intentions and energy we put into things today not only create such, manifest in the future, they also manifest into the past, and in both directions in time equally. So things, some reasons we get into subjects, we don't know why we suddenly get into them, and then maybe 10 years down the line, our energy is so strongly into that has almost bounced back through time, and it kind of answers our question. And this has kind of twisted my mind up for about a good 6 months after I discovered this, but I did a bit of research on it, and it makes a lot of sense, especially when you take into account the quantum research that's been done recently.
I would also like to add to this. There's one person in the audience today, my good friend and colleague Willem de Swart, whose new book, Secret Numbers of God, will be coming out very soon. And I can certainly tell you, if you're worried or concerned about or want to learn and understand this whole subject of time, space, and space-time crossover especially, I suggest just watch the space. Secret Numbers of God is going to rock your world. It is the most mind-blowing expose of the whole numeric grid and how it works and functions in this thing called nature of reality. Where are you, Willem? Put your hand up. Let me see you. Where are you here? I saw him earlier. He's in a... Okay. But it's certainly... interesting, very interesting stuff, and it's so wacky and so weird when you start delving into those areas of working with numbers and their actual meaning, and how they project their effect on this thing called nature of reality that we experience here is really, really phenomenal.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that the complexity and mystery of this subject is really very intriguing. Much of human life is a story. And that's one of the reasons why I'm very concerned about the narrative of the past that is given to us by mainstream historians and archaeologists. Because the more they impose that narrative on our consciousness, the more I believe they are changing the past and closing down certain avenues in the past that could manifest in our time in very positive ways. And it's why I believe it's a vitally important act to create an alternative narrative of the past, and that the more we do that, the more that narrative will manifest also. And just the last point, thoughts are things, and we need to be very careful what we think and manifest, and this relates particularly to the notion of global cataclysm. This is not a notion that it's healthy to dwell upon or magnify into grand Hollywood scenarios. I think it's a very dangerous thing to do.
We have a question over there.
Very simple question. You can answer yes or no if you like. Have you studied the sounds of the drum rocks?
The sounds of the what?
The drum rocks. I don't think you have.
The drum rocks? Yes. Which
the African percussion drum rocks.
I haven't, no.
Okay.
No, I haven't. I would like to know more about it, about the African drum rocks. I don't know much about them.
For your sound, it could be very interesting to see whether they've been manipulated by man or if they are a natural phenomenon.
Can you tell us more about the drum rocks quickly before we move on? Where are they?
They are about all over Southern Africa that I know of. There's even a place in Mpumalanga it used to be called Drum Rock. I wouldn't know where they were. If I did, I wouldn't tell you, because I think it's got to be carefully controlled, and you don't want people going free for all,
well done,
drumming through to the middle of the earth.
Thank you.
There is one in Kango Caves. I think that's the idea.
No, I was just going to mention earlier, it wasn't really a question, but with regards to your last lecture, is with regards to opening up, I've actually found using meditation techniques from the East with bowls and, drums and that sort of thing, one can also have awesome experiences. And in actual fact, see that divine law out there that you just got to want to bow down to.
Yeah. No, I tried to make that clear, but the talk was a little bit rushed. It seems that Mother Nature has taken a belt and braces approach to altered states of consciousness, as well as supplying us with huge numbers of plant allies that have co-evolved with us and that are used by shamans. She has also provided us with techniques that do not require any plants. Drumming.
Sure.
Certain forms of dancing,
it's a
meditation.
Longer route. Yeah,
meditation, indeed.
Route. Yeah.
It's a longer route for sure.
With more discipline, but it's
I wouldn't agree with you on that. I wouldn't agree that it involves more discipline. Believe me, working with ayahuasca involves a huge amount of personal discipline.
Yeah.
Huge amount. I wouldn't put down one technique against another. I would say that this is a range of techniques with which we are provided, and it's good that there is a broad range of techniques.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Mike, I think another name for what the lady up there was talking about are rock gongs as well.
Rock gongs, very quickly, there are many of those, if that's what you're referring to. I mean, I come across rock gongs all the time. We just recently went up to Limpopo with my friend Louise. If you're still here, Louise, we went up into the forests of Limpopo and found a rock gong that has been a legend there for over 100 years already, and found it. Willem de Swart was actually with me on that trip, and it's spectacular. And these African rock gongs are everywhere. And when we eventually found it in the middle of the forest, it's about you drive up into the forest for an hour, and you park your car and you walk through thick bush. I actually videotaped it. I think I should just put the whole video thing on the internet so people can get an idea of what it's like to get there. And when we finally got there, it is absolutely amazing. It's this huge rock just lying in the middle of nowhere, and when you strike it with a smaller rock, it truly rings like a bell at Notre Dame. And so it's a huge rock gong. It probably weighs about 20 tons. And suddenly it occurred to us that we possibly are we're dealing with sound, and sound being the primordial creative source. We're possibly dealing with a communication device between dimensions or between planets or between realities, and that you can travel with that sound from here to somewhere else if you allow yourself to somehow be possessed by the sound or become one with that sound frequency. Since everything is frequency and everything breaks down into frequency as a primordial source of energy, it's an interesting thing that we could actually travel through sound waves and throughout wherever you want to go, and that suddenly became an interesting concept.
That wasn't my question. I was just mentioning the thing. But
sorry.
Sticking with the rock gong thing, also apparently Linda Tucker and Credo say that within the courtyard or one of the courtyards of Great Zimbabwe are various rock gongs that have the similar frequencies or something to Sirius. I don't know. Don't quote me on it, but just sticking up. But going further north to Giza, I actually wanted to ask Robert Temple this question, but I'm sure someone with knowledge of Egypt and could answer the question. In the Sphinx mystery, obviously Robert is saying that it's the lost sanctuary of Anubis. And we saw from Anton and various other people of the idea that Giza was an island or surrounded by water. With the rising of Sirius and the connections between Anubis being the dog-headed god and the dog star, and what's known as the dog days in Greece and Rome because of the intense heat, the flooding of the Nile and the role that would have had if Giza was an island, and the various I heard of, I'm not sure if it is, and that's why I'm asking, quartz crystal within and underneath the pyramids, and if that was creating any kind of energy. But yeah, I was just wondering if anyone could answer that. I know it was specifically for Robert Temple, but the idea of Anubis and Sirius and the flooding of the Nile, if anyone could have any kind of comments on that.
Hi. Okay, well, I think sometimes Robert Temple throws curveballs in his books just to see what people's reactions are, because when I initially read this whole concept of the Sphinx being a dog, I really couldn't handle it. What I've since found out, though, is that it does seem in the earliest dynasties of Egypt that there may have been some kind of guardian animal which had two forms, both the lion and the dog, which were guardian protector to the pharaoh as he journeyed through the underworld. So as mad as I thought Robert's idea was, I think there might be something in it. I don't think it's Anubis, it's a much more earlier form of it, but this is new work which a colleague of mine is doing, and I can't go too much more in it at the moment. But on the idea of the dog days, all the rest of it, well, yeah, obviously it coincides with the inundation, which in ancient Egypt took place approximately around the time of the summer solstice. But obviously now, due to the shift of time, and obviously it doesn't happen at all anymore because of the building of the Nasser Dam, it's gradually shifted from sort of the summer solstice through to about August, I believe it would have been, if it still was going on now. So yeah, I think there probably is a link there somewhere. So that's all I'd say.
Any other questions? Over there?
A thought just occurred to me. If everything and the creation of the universe and everything is frequency and harmonics and music, basically, Graham, when you went through this experience, did you hear anything? Because all the depictions in the cave paintings are basically visual, and it's paintings. And even Klaus, do you come across any effigies or any statues or anything that resembles some kind of historical remnants of music or some kind of, like I know with your crop circles, not your crop circles, your cattle kraals, that's actually a record of, the harmonics and the frequencies and everything, and actually it's showing something vibrant there. But everything's been visual so far, so where...
Sound plays a very important part in ayahuasca ceremonies. The shamans in the Amazon have a system of songs that they call Icaros, which they say have been given to them by the spirits. Every shaman has his own Icaros. And during the ayahuasca journey, they will sing these Icaros. And the experience of this is that the Icaro takes physical form, and you find yourself with a guide path that is leading you through this very strange realm that you find yourself in. It's a kind of road that leads you through that realm. So song is actually an incredibly important part of ayahuasca visionary experiences. I myself have never heard sounds as part of my visions, but I know many people who have, and I know many people who are inspired to burst into song during an ayahuasca session, sometimes in languages that they don't even speak. It's quite an extraordinary phenomenon, really.
So there may be perhaps on some of those cave paintings where we saw those zigzag things floating around the people, that could actually maybe be a depiction of frequencies.
It could be a manifestation of sound, yes, it's perfectly possible.
Because there's a lot of visual stuff, but nothing really depicting the... I suppose you can't really depict harmonics unless you sing it, and I suppose through the ages, through bards and stuff like that.
Sound is a hard thing to represent visually, I agree, but it's definitely part of these
we're obviously
experiences.
waking up to the fact that there is much more harmonics involved in the creation of everything.
Definitely.
And a lot of these things that
Definitely.
we're finding aren't what we used to think they are. They're more harmonics. So
the universe is sung into existence in the ancient Egyptian tradition. It's song, it's voice that brings the universe into existence. And let's not forget the Old Testament. In the beginning was the Word. It's a thought.
I think, we've been giving the instruction to wind this up. So Wendy, last question there with you, please. Just.
Thank you. This question's directed at Wayne. You so beautifully illustrated how everything in the heavenlies is mirrored on earth, as above, so below. And it's inspired the question in me that just keeps on coming back is, where do those comparisons show up in the human body? And maybe thinking of the triangle, so you have heaven, earth, and maybe the human body is the third point.
This is purely celestial as a star map. I don't think there's much more than that on those drawings, but in the star maps themselves, there is depiction of the Vitruvian Man in 3 different instances, literally encoded into, yeah, so there's a human connection to it. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, and I think maybe on that note, we should wind this up. Oh, Greg. Okay, Greg's got a question, since he's come all the way from San Diego and he's been helping us.
Thank you. I think a lot of people here are going to feel the same way I do. I'm pretty deeply spiritual, and I don't believe in contributing to bad manifestations, but after seeing this show today, it's evident that I'm a little saddened for our race. I've noticed that a lot of different civilizations have come and gotten wiped out, and it seems like there have been powers, Illuminati, I don't know, entities coming into people. They turn into Illuminati. I don't know what it is, but it seems like we've been under control for each civilization each time. And with what just happened in Japan in 2012, I'm a little shook, and I don't contribute to fear, but I'm trying my hardest not to let it affect me. What can we do? And for whoever this resonates with can answer this. What can we do as a human, as a species, to help each other out and change the course of the way things are going?
I'll just say a brief word on this. I also addressed this yesterday, and it's a question I often ask myself. As individual humans, it's daunting and overwhelming to confront the state of the world. And we feel powerless when we look at gigantic events and the insanity of warfare. All of it seems to be out of our hands, being done at a level far beyond us, which we cannot influence, however much we might wish to influence. And that's where I come back to what I said yesterday, that the one area in which we are in control is in our own lives. And that's an area where we can fix things and we can make things better, both in how we lead our own lives and how we interact with others. And a lot of people ask me where I'm going to be on the 21st of December 2012. I have no view on the place, but I want to be surrounded by my family, by those I love, and I want to spend a beautiful day with them, sharing and growing. That's all I want to do. I want to live as good a life as I can, and that's, I think, the limit of any individual's ambition that we can do. But if we do that, if we all do that, then things will change, definitely.
I'd like to also add to that remember, collective consciousness is a very powerful tool. Graham said thoughts are things. Absolutely, they're more than just things. They're incredibly powerful tools. Collectively, consciously, even this small group here tonight is doing a great job towards elevating and raising consciousness. There's no doubt about that. That's why when we opened the show 2 days ago, I made a very clear statement that it was planting a seed for the growth of consciousness in South Africa and affecting the rest of the world. And I believe we have done exactly that. And it's really important to think about that. And I know you know this, Greg. You've had a few intense discussions with Willem de Swart, who I believe will help us understand this consciousness through understanding the nature of reality. For as long as we believe that this projected insane universe is real, we will be trapped in this insane universe and this insane reality. This is just a projection. We can change the insanity into a beautiful reality very easily. We just need to understand that we need to remove ourselves from the insane projection first, and it is actually not there. It's just a projected reality that seems very, very real to us.
Yeah, and absolutely, here. Above all else, 3 things: fear, hatred, suspicion. Those have to go. Those have no place in the future of the human race. No more fear, no more hatred, no more suspicion. Replace them with love, and we will find our way forward.
Remember, ultimately, it's all about unity. We come from source, and we are all actually united in this beautiful concept of unity. We've been separated and segregated on so many different levels that we believe we are separated. We're not separated. We actually are all source of united in this beautiful place called unity. Only out of unity can come infinite diversity. And we're experiencing this infinite diversity. We just need to reunite in love and the understanding the concept of unity. But that's a whole nother subject, I guess. So before we start waffling on too much, I would like to thank everybody that has remained here. Thank you very much for coming out and sharing this weekend with us. Thank you to everybody. I'm going to hand over to Hugh to say a few final thank yous and thank all the people that have helped us. And then I will finally end this beautiful weekend and event with a ceremonial gong sitting next to me here from the primordial race of humans on earth that I believe lived exactly in this place where we are today, which I believe, coming back to source and sound, I would like to do that. End with the beautiful tones of the sound frequencies of these ancient instruments. Over to you, Hugh.
Thank you, Michael. We'll do a big thank you for Michael at the end, so you can have to wait for that. I think, first of all, our film crew, Jonathan, Greg, Austin, everyone else involved, doing an amazing job. Anton at the back doing all the sound. Also to Adele and Elle, who have been basically organising this whole event for the last few months. A big round of applause for those. And to Daryl as well, and Roland, who hosted our speakers' dinner. And to, you should be doing this. And to Mervyn and all the crew out on the stall out there. And of course, to all our speakers, present and unpresent. And to Daniel, our extra cameraman, who's done an amazing job. And I apologise for anyone we've forgotten because my notebook's over there somewhere. But a big thank you to everyone involved. It's been a beautiful event. It's worked perfectly with a few minor glitches. But apart from that, it's been awesome. And ultimately, we have to thank Michael Tellinger. Please, a big round of applause. Over to you, Michael.
All right, will you hold the mic so we can do the ceremonial gong? This is my favorite of all the instruments I've picked up because it truly rings so beautifully. I didn't show you this one earlier. This is my latest gizmo, beautiful tool. And I was showing this to Graham earlier. Just the patina growth on this is just so spectacular. It just fills me with absolute awe and wonder about the kind of existence or what this thing has been through in its entire life. It's fantastic to try and just imagine. Let your imagination run wild. So here we go, final gong. Thank you very much for coming. We'll see you next year.